get it. Real Talk with Carl and Charlene. Real talk for the real world. Let's get it.
Good morning, and welcome to another week. We're now entering into the count it, the third week in May, and Lord knows the time is going by. We're about to hit the summer, y'all. With Q2 is rolling along. I want to thank you for joining us again for another fabulous edition of Real Talk with Carl and Charlene. And we bringing it to you another week. We got a fabulous guest on today, but we want you to know, as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Those that are tuning in live, as always, drop in the chat where you're tuning in from. Let us know where you're checking in from. Drop your thoughts and your perspectives in there as well. And your questions, because we love looking at the questions, reading them, and going through them in the midst of the show. And for those who are going to join us, hashtag replay, you do the same. Drop in from where you're tuning in from. We're a global show. We know we're going to have people from all over the globe looking at it. We're going to be reading it. We're going to check out what you got to say about what we're doing, how we're bringing value, and these fabulous guests that we continue to have on our show. But of course, you know I don't do this by myself. I got my hostess with the mostest with me, the sunshine to the rain. Let's bring her out. What's up, Charlene? What's going on?
Hey, good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to you.
Happy
What it be
day.
like?
Everything. What's going on?
Yeah, it's what it be like. What it be like. Yeah. So how was the weekend? You know, we got to check on that. We got Dr. Nooper for the UK. We got England over the
I
pond.
know.
Is in the house.
They
We got
come
Michigan in the house. They coming full force for us
they
today.
coming in. They coming in. My
Yes.
weekend was good. I tried to get my sleep in. Actually, what I was doing this weekend was watching documentaries. I went back to something that I love to do. And I
Oh,
was
okay.
watching a documentary on a religion. I'm not gonna say what it is because that documentary kind of freaked me out. So I'm not even going to mention what it was, but it's good. It was a good insight, something to think about, something to make you say, really,
Hmm.
okay.
What's
But yeah, documentaries. That was my thing, and I started another one, but it was more on like horrors and hauntings and stuff that happens, and that's what I like. I like haunting. So
yeah.
that was another documentary I started on, and then I flipped it and started watching some more movies.
Wow, wow, wow,
So
wow.
that was my weekend. My weekend was that, all in the midst of also weaving in some things that I'm doing for my clients, getting things ready on the back end in their client portals for them. So I can't wait. That's going to be something that long overdue, but I'm happy the way it's coming along. And what
Yeah.
about you? How was your weekend?
Mother's Day weekend wasn't about me. It
True,
was
true. Oh
about
yeah,
the
I said
ministry.
happy Mother's Day to my mama too.
Yeah,
So I had to get
yes.
that out
Happy
the
Mother's
way.
Day. I know it's a little past the belated, but happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. We hope you guys had a glorious Happy Mother's Day to those who have lost children as well, and
Yeah,
to those that have lost mothers. I know this weekend it's
could
always
be
been
tough.
consumed with joy, but there's been a lot happening over the past few years with the pandemic
Yeah.
and different things happening and lives being lost. So we want to be sensitive to all of that. Those who probably may have spent their first Mother's Day without their mother, and vice versa
Mhm.
without their child. So we definitely send our love and prayers out to you. But I had a wonderful weekend as well. I get joy, and I guess like any man that takes care of his family, he gets joy seeing his family happy. And my wife had a lovely time. She loves seafood, so of course we went all in and got her seafood stuff. It really stinks up the house. I'm not a seafood guy. I'm just gonna tell you. Yeah, I'm not. I'm just not into something that swims and I can't catch it myself and eat it. But it's a mental thing. But they had their seafood, their crabs, their mussels, their lobsters, the whole nine. They had the whole nine. Her and her sisters and her mom. So they really had a great time. So I was happy to be able to do that with them and figure that out with them and just enjoy it. But me and myself are relaxed. And I ate an old fashioned Sunday basketball game watching meal. I had hot wings and a salad. That's like that was my Mother's Day dinner for myself. But it was cool. It was cool though. It was cool. I had a great time. I had a great weekend.
That might end up being your Father's Day gift too. Keep
I
playing,
it
messing
was that
around.
because the funny thing about it, right? The mothers always want to go out. They want to do this. They want to blow it up. They want to have the outfits. They do the church. All the whole nine, right? Every time Father's Day roll around, they ask me, "Do I want to barbecue? Like, you want to cook outside?" Like, why I can't get the restaurant?
Because you don't like seafood. Why go through all that?
I mean, they're not like I can go get a nice steak or something like that. They don't they don't offer me that. He's like, Dad, you want a barbecue? Like, okay, that means I got to put the stuff on. I got the grill. Like, that's not a Father's Day to me, but it is what it is.
Y'all like to take charge.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
your day to
Y'all
take
always do that
charge.
on our day, though. On our day,
Oh,
yeah.
you know what? Send a memo in so the Father's Day committee can look at that.
Yeah,
and
somebody got to
they'll
look
get
at
back
that,
to you.
and don't put my stuff. Don't put my stuff in file 13 in the trash can either. I want y'all
They'll
to-
look at that. They'll look at that.
I want it to not be like the suggestion box at your desk at your corporations. I want somebody paying
Oh
attention to it,
Lord.
right? Oh,
Well,
God.
speaking of today is all about understanding a better leadership. I'm going to
Yeah,
start off with that
yeah.
because our guest he's actually bringing us another form of leadership, true leadership. And I had to ask him before the show, what is true leadership? So he's going to tell y'all too. Cuz just so if y'all I know y'all, there are those of you out there same like me was wondering what is true leadership? Because we hear about a lot of the other things, but what is true leadership? And his explanation hit the nail on the head because it's all about making sure that, once you're in that role in life, it's not just in a corporation, but in life, when you're in that role of leadership, and a lot of us are leaders without realizing it. How
Right.
are we allowing others to see us, and what are we doing to keep that going, keep that momentum going, not just for us, but for others as well?
Yeah, it is, and me had the privilege of talking to this fellow. I talk to a lot of people. That goes without saying, but we hit these zooms up. If I think I've done more zooms than I've done actually lives. And
You the mayor of LinkedIn, that's why.
it's a beautiful thing. Like it's a beautiful thing to talk and hear some of the things that people go through and what they're saying and how they perceive life, and it's so enjoyable to do
Yes.
that. And I talked to this guy, man, and he's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. So you guys are in for a treat today, as always. Anytime we grace the stage, the LinkedIn stage, the Facebook stage, the YouTube stage, we taking over all stages. If you don't know, go ask somebody. We take
Twitch is next. Twitch is next. We just got to figure that out. But we are going to bring on Mr. Ty. Welcome to the
Yeah.
show, sir.
Hello.
You see, I tell him all the time. him and Jersey Internet.
Oh man, you gotta be kidding me. They fooling with me already today.
Oh my
I was like,
gosh.
where'd you go, Shawn?
Yeah, they fooling with me already today, man. They give me once a week. They give me once a week. Once or twice a week, they get me. But what's up, Ty, man? What's going on, man? Talk to
Oh
us.
man,
What is
I
up?
am so happy to be here with you, and was just really enjoying being in the backstage and appreciating. Just really, I just want to appreciate you too, and your whole vibe and obvious friendship, and it just makes it such a joy. I'm so looking forward to being a part of this. I'm almost kind of like, how can I get my next podcast conversation? Because I already want to talk with you for another hour.
We do part twos. We do part
Yes,
twos.
we
So,
do. Yes, we do.
So
And I
thank
have a
you.
feeling you're going to need a part two for a lot of the unpacking that's going to be happening.
yeah, most definitely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me. I
Well,
really
Ty, tell us a little bit about you first and foremost.
appreciate
Also, we want to thank you for coming on for be your first podcast with us. We welcome you to this show and welcome you to LinkedIn in general, man. You got a lot to offer to people, so I won't tell it. You can tell it. Let them know a little bit about you and how did you come about this true leadership aspect? Because when we hear leaders, we always talk about leadership development, leadership coaching. That we try to tie in so much with leaders as far as character and the kind of individual they are. But I think I'm right along with Charlene with that. I think true leadership is really what we envision when we
it.
talk about leaders. But tell me, how did you come to a place where that will be your title, as that, so people could get that understanding of that?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. I've been engaged in leadership development to some extent for the entirety of my career for 15 years.
Mhm.
And What I have found over and over and over again, and this is both in the professional setting, working with leaders as a coach, as an executive and leadership coach, working with organizations and with teams. And then, of course, alongside that, my own personal journey and all that I've learned from that. And what I've really seen over and over and over again is that true leadership, first of all, it's not a role. It's not a skill to learn. It's not just a function that you play. It's certainly not a title. It is something that, true leadership to me is something that is accessible to absolutely every single human being. And it is a calling that all of us have. And so I like to make that distinction. Now, I do like to work with leaders that are people, that are in leadership positions, because I see them as a leverage point in organizations, right? Working with other people for creating even more change, right? For helping other people to learn and to grow. But true leadership to me, at its essence, is simply connecting to and living from what is true in you. And that is not something that is, you can be mopping the floors, you can be playing on the playground, you can be an executive in the C-suite. It doesn't matter. So that's. I mean, I'm happy to talk, more about it, but that's at the essence. True leadership is a commitment to truth. What is actually true, right? Am I able to connect to what that is and have the courage to live from that place? I think fits in really well with the vulnerability conversation as well.
Yeah, because I was going to say, we talked a little bit about how they connect and how being true to yourself allows you to also be vulnerable enough to be authentic so people can see if you mess up. It's not a big deal. This is how you can move forward. And so that's why I say, this can be throughout life, no matter what positions you're holding. So for you, how did you come to that conclusion, or how did you come up with this concept and allow yourself to be someone to help others
Hmm.
also come to the point where they can be true leaders as well?
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting because we're just coming off of Mother's Day here, and I had this. I'll just tell this really quick little story. I was on just a family text message, and I texted a bunch. There's other like my aunts. And I always text them, Happy Mother's Day and I love you so much. And my aunt wrote back to me, thank you so much for wishing us a happy Mother's Day. I know that this is one of the hardest days of the year for you, because when I was 4 years old, my mother died. She was only 26. And I actually wrote back to her, there could be nothing farther from the truth. That Mother's Day is actually one of the most amazing days in my life, because of the experience that I had in losing my mother, which I'll say a little bit more. And then for some other reasons too. I also have children. I have my son's mother is amazing. I'm no longer with her, but she is an amazing mother. My own partner is just an incredible mother. So there's lots of reasons that Mother's Day is a wonderful day. But when my mother passed when I was 4 years old, it really, I mean, you can just imagine, as a 4-year-old child, it really tore the fabric of everything. And psychologically speaking, and we all do this to some extent, the things that happen to us when we don't have the capacity to understand that it's not our fault, we internalize that. And so I deeply, but before even having a verbal thought, right? My internalization of my mother leaving was, due to the reason that I was not enough. And if I had just been more or better in some way or less, right, then maybe she wouldn't have left. And so, the first half of my life was very, very deep suffering, a lot of shame, and all of my personality and everything that I did came from that hurt and masking that hurt and not wanting to feel that hurt. And it's interesting. I was actually thinking so much about the word vulnerability because of you, Carl, especially because you Mr. Vulnerability, right? And I really appreciate the etymology of words, like where do words actually come from? And if you look up the definition of, the vulner is wound,
That's wrong. Yeah.
right? And it's interesting because I think that, there's we think of vulnerability as, or oftentimes vulnerability is seen as, you know, opening yourself up to being wounded,
Mhm.
right? And that's the sort of scary part. So like when you're a child, when you're a baby, you don't have defenses, right? Or you're just the sitting duck, so to speak, and there's a vulnerability in that. But I think that and there's a wound that happens there, right? And we all have wounds from our childhood and when we were vulnerable and we didn't, we didn't know what was happening, and so we were wounded in this way.
Mhm.
But I think the kind of vulnerability that you espouse is a capacity to open up our wounding to healing,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, you know, at first we're vulnerable to wounding,
Yeah.
right? And the wound happens, and then throughout life there's this opportunity to, little by little open up and show that in a way into the light of, oh wait, none of that was actually true.
Mhm.
And so when I talk about true leadership is really a deep commitment to what is actually true. And the wound that I had from my childhood, the reason that it hurt was because it wasn't true. What hurts is a lie to some extent, right? So
Mhm.
it's like if I'm believing that I'm not enough, well, that hurts. Okay. Well, if I open that up little by little and expose that over and over and over again, little by little, step by step, ultimately what can happen is exposing the deception of that there's actually nothing wrong with me whatsoever, right? And in that healing potentially can, connect to with the truth is that not just me, but you and all of us are perfectly enough. And when we connect from that place and we're really, inhabiting, say, a leadership role or, uh, a connection with our partner or with our children or with our friends, and you're living life from that place and not from that place of not enoughness, but from that, really deep connection with what is true. I mean, well, that's what love is, right? That's where you talk about true authenticity, real deep transformational power that isn't about trying, it's not about learning a particular skill or doing a particular thing. It's about emanating from our essence of what we truly are. So I don't know if it's a little bit of a roundaway about it. I'm not sure if that answers.
That was a wonderful walk, a wonderful beginning of a journey, and it's so real and so surreal. I was about to ask you, have you been taking one of my one of my programs? Because when you talk about that, I don't talk a lot about the in-depthness of it. I talk about it on the, and I wouldn't necessarily, it's not superficial for me, but it becomes that for a lot of people because they don't engage. And when you don't engage into something, it becomes superficial, whether it's reading, learning, whatever. It's just something to say, okay, I saw that book, I read that book, but when you engage in things, then it become a part of you, and then you
Mhm.
take them on. And if you believe what they become you, and then and then people get to see that. So when you embrace yourself as the true person you are, that emulates from the outside where others can see that. And I tell a lot of people, I think a lot of recruiters and those that are in the realms try to take a smile when you're interviewing, sit up straight, because all of those project things, right? Those are really superficial though. But when you get down on the inside, what you're talking about with the true transformation that needs to take place, and it's amazing how you talked about the wound piece of that. I always say to away from the wound piece because people automatically go to that. So I never really go into that until I'm talking more so on a one-on-one with people because they're not even aware of the wound. How could you at 4 have a mentality to say you wasn't enough, and that
Right.
was the reason your mom left or passed.
Mhm.
See, there's no connection nowhere at all in that.
Mhm.
But the connection that you derive from that is what you really taught about the lie. And this is why we can't be true and have true leadership or even follow or emulate true leadership, because at some, like my grandma used to tell me, another one of her grandma is, baby, it's a little lie in all the truth. It
Mhm.
never made sense to me till I got older. I was like, it's supposed to be truth and a lie, right? How can it be a little bit of that in the other? And she would tell me that people mask a lot of lies within the truth.
Mhm.
And this is this, and what you pointing it out, that's just a big point of it. When you go to that trueness of that and the journey that it takes, that how have you found people to be receptive to that? Because I found people to say in what I do, they love it, they enjoy it, it's needed.
Mhm.
Man, oh my God, but I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
That's not for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that uh, one of the one of the things that I say about this particular approach that I work with people, first of all, we're all everybody's at different developmental stages.
Mm.
And that's okay. There's nothing right or wrong about being in a developmental stage, right? And um, there becomes a particular point, I would say, and sometimes, at least in stages of adult development, there are certainly points where people decide, okay, what I'm doing isn't working anymore. I want to learn something else. But that point comes at different times for different folks. And so certainly the kind of work that I do, which is essentially it's what I would say is it's helping people learn how to do the deep inner work to actually access what is true in them and live from their essence, right? So it's not just accessing and living in your essence. It's actually learning the foundations of how to do that stuff. And I say it all the time, this work is not for everybody in every moment of life. It takes courage. And in order to be able to begin to face that stuff that's scary, I mean, I think there's got to be a deep enough a motivation for it. In my life, it was, it, things got really bad. Things got really, really hard living life from a place of suffering and shame. And I was deathly afraid of turning towards it and what was scary. But it was like, I can't keep going on like this, and so I find that the folks that are the folks that do the best with this sort of work are folks that are ready for it. And if you're not, that's okay, right? You can't push people into this stuff. And then the other thing that I find is, I really work to slow things way, way down. Really, I have, once I got a little taste of, sort of transformational stuff, boy, my ego took a hold of that, and I was like making leaps and bounds in I was just like running across the transformational, and it turns out I wasn't actually making even one step there, right? And I had to learn the hard way. Let's call it getting deeply, deeply humbled by the universe, right? To learn like, whoa, watch yourself, kiddo, slow down and take one step at a time. So that's really, I infuse that into the work that I do as well. And it really, really just begins with awareness. You're not trying to, you take this slow, slow, slow walk. I work with a teacher and she says, to heal a wound, you got to travel the distance back to where it first came in.
Mhm.
Experience it fully. When you experience it fully, that thing that you thought you had lost, you realize you had only lost connection to, and your connection fills up like that. And you're experiencing life from this wholeness in a way that you hadn't before. But I don't want to take people right back to that. I want to be too much too fast.
Yeah.
So you start really, really slow. Let's just look at the way that it shows up, right? Here's my reactivity. Here are my self-judgments. Let's just learn to look at that from a place of non-judgment. That's really the first step.
And it goes into the symptoms. I deal a lot with the symptoms, uh, because the symptoms are obvious. When someone has a cold, the cold could be living within them for quite a bit of time.
Mhm.
But we only acknowledge that the cold is there once the symptoms manifest. And the symptoms are, of course, sneezing, running eyes, cough, congestion, those things. Then the diagnosis can come and say, oh, you have a cold. It's such as us. Naturally, we have things that we went through that we're harboring such a
Mhm.
long period of time. Talk to so many executives, and you'd be surprised at some of the people, and maybe you won't. Some of the people that I speak to and talk to, there are upper echelons in their fields and in their lives, right? But when we get down and I start uncovering some things, they're still stuck at 9, 10, something that their dad didn't say to them when they was 12,
Mhm.
something that mom may have put off and hurt their feelings and they've held on to. Sometimes haven't even spoken to mom or dad for years, but they're so, if we look at them on the outside and we see this grandiose picture of, oh my God, they got what they used to call it, the wife or the spouse, the house, the white picket fence, the two dogs, the two, they got that kind of scenario going on. And I sit and I talk, and some of them, a lot of them being in tears, and they just don't understand why they're stuck at 8 years old, or they're this super producer of trying to do so many great things, but they still have this hold that they're holding on to. And I love how you say even the wound going to the back. I think that's what's really been brutally honest in in looking at people, because they can't go back to that. They don't want to. So that's why people understand the work that we do, understand the work that you do. But
Mm.
it's a painful place that it's taken them to.
Yeah, it's a couple of things come up for me there. One is that, I really hold and because I do like to make a distinction between the work that I do and I offer in therapy, right? And
Yeah, absolutely.
as far as I'm concerned, there's no need to go back into the past because
No,
the past is living itself through you right now
just
in whatever
manifesting.
ways that you're still holding on to it. So the question is, how does it show up right now in your life? And then let's deal with it right now as it's showing up. Your hurt from what happened with you and your mom or you and your dad can guarantee you that that's playing out in your relationship with your husband or your wife.
Mm-hmm.
It can guarantee that that's playing out in your current relationships or your challenges in having relationships. So you can work with all that in the present moment without having to drudge up old stuff, and stuff will just come up naturally without needing to go back and look at it. Look for it, I would say. And the other piece that I hear what you're saying, there's this real, I think it's a developmental stage. And this is something that I look for in terms of people being willing to do this work. And then, if I'm working someone with individually, I'll be like, okay, or if you're like being ready to go into and begin to turn towards the stuff that's scary
Mhm.
and begin to take that true leadership journey towards authenticity requires first and foremost, I said it was awareness, but I'll peel that back just on what you were saying. It requires a commitment to owning my stuff. So it requires getting off of that victim wheel. It requires getting off of, and saying, okay, there's all of these things that have happened in my life, and I'm not responsible for what happened to me, but I think if I start with the accountability, then ownership, and then responsibility. So accountability is the ability to account for my own contribution to whatever I'm experiencing. That's where I can start. I can't change what happened in the past. But what's my participation in my life right now? That's what I can work with.
Yeah, because I would definitely even add to that that sometimes we do hit that roadblock where we might need a deeper work, but then that's where
Professionals come
the
in.
therapists and the professionals come in. So I want people to really take that into account because there are a lot of folks who have been coming out, especially during the pandemic, and have been touting themselves as trauma coaches and things like that. But you have to be careful when you're starting to peel away a lot of these layers to do that work to understand where a lot of your reactions and your emotions are coming from. So I think once you start tapping on certain areas, then you need to have that awareness to
Yeah.
say, okay, you know what, I can continue this work as well, but I need a professional for something else too. So definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pain we face, right, ourselves become like as within, so without, so to speak. So I'm
Yeah.
only really able to be with and to hold the extent to which I've been with my own traumas, my own wounds, my own hurt, right?
Mhm.
And if there's something, if there's something that feels like outside of my capacity or my pay grade, so to speak,
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
you know, let's acknowledge that, right?
Mhm,
And to some extent, I just want to say all reactivity is coming from, it's like this word trauma is getting thrown around all the time, but essentially,
Mhm.
there's no reactivity that anyone has, no matter how subtle or big, that doesn't come from trauma of some kind. Trauma is an overwhelm of the system,
mhm,
right, in
Right.
which we've rejected some part of our experience, and it sort of bubbles up and comes out in ways that we don't mean later on. So
Mhm.
we're all dealing with trauma. We're all in this conversation together. It really just becomes that question of the extent
mhm.
to which we can really, be with, and being really honest in that conversation is really, really important with stuff like that. So I'm glad you're bringing that into the fold here.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I wanted to talk about, you have a master class or just a space where people can really do deeper dives with you. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, because I know you have a 10-minute introduction, but what is that? And
Yeah,
how can people really work with you with that?
yeah. Thanks for asking. So over the past 5 years, which is um, where I've been primarily working with individuals, leaders, executives, and folks not in traditional leadership positions as well. I have been developing what I call the true leadership approach, which is essentially it's a step by step. It's a step by step process that really really slows down the process of learning how to do the inner work. So you could say it's like mindfulness in a way, plus, because what we're actually doing is identifying what I call the heart of the matter, right? So the heart of the matter is like your unique leverage point in your inner world, that because there's plenty of things that you can pay attention to in your life, right? Plenty of things that I can be sort of skimming the surface on, and cast a really wide net. Or I can start with doing some really deep inquiry and saying, what's that one thread that I could pull? That if I were to shift, change, or transform, even just a little bit, this is getting back to like the core cause that you were saying before, right? If I can really get to that root cause, and if I were to transform that just a little bit, would ripple out and would touch everything. So we start with that and just really getting to that. And then this whole program is really focused very much on, first of all, becoming aware. And the way that I sort of sum it up quickly, it's like first of all, it's like 9 sessions right now. This mastermind course is 9 self-led online sessions with weekly community of practice calls. So you're engaged weekly with me and with other people that are simultaneously engaged in doing this work, which I think at this point is just absolutely, absolutely fundamental to be engaging in this work with other people, to see that like, okay, my stuff is my own, but I don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
Right.
So the way that I sort of break it down to talk about it without going too deep into all of the different elements is, really starts with accountability, which is the ability to account for my own contribution to whatever it is that I'm experiencing. So it's really, really working with awareness, becoming aware, right? Becoming, and then moving to ownership. And ownership is my ability to accept that contribution that I'm making without judgment. The
Mhm.
without judgment piece is huge, because if I'm judging my own contribution, I'm not actually owning it. I'm not reclaiming it. I'm not calling it back into me, into a place where there's more capacity, embodiment to actually live from. Yeah. And then after the ownership is this step of responsibility, which is just the ability to respond, right? The ability to respond from this place of new ownership, where I've this place of, instead of judging or rejecting a part of myself, I've called it back in.
Mhm.
Now, what is in my capacity to do, and can I do it? Right. So at the stage of accountability, you're really working with awareness. At the stage of ownership, you're really working with compassion and acceptance. And then in the stage of responsibility, that's the play I would say a lot of coaching goes immediately to that, right? It's like, what can you do? And I would just say, if you go to responsibility and what can I do before stopping at awareness and self-compassion, then you're going to be not responding, but reacting, because you'll be moving forward and taking action in a way that part of you is not really coming with you all the way. So to take your response, to be having the ability to respond from this place of deeper ownership. So I would say that the sessions themselves sort of break down really, really slowly into those 3 steps. It includes, particular meditations, very specific steps of how to do the deep inner inquiry to learn, what are the parts that are present, how to turn to those parts, what are, deeper understanding and compassion about why they're there, what they're attempting to do for us. And then practices that are not just sort of like sitting on the cushion, but you engage in daily life, which is where, of course, the rubber really hits the road and where push really comes to shove.
Wow. So you're going to put them to work in this master class.
It is, like I say, it is not for everybody, and that's okay, and that's okay. So yeah, it's for people that are willing to do the deep inner work to actually access and live from what is true. And that is not for every person at every time in life. And it's something that is absolutely accessible to all people, should they choose. So it's not exclusive at all. It's really just based on where someone is and whether they want to do it or not. So I just want to really make that clear as well.
Yeah, it's definitely understanding that, and it's, we find so many times that we get this term thrown around, the niche. What's your niche? What's your niche? I ain't never heard that term before the pandemic. I'm serious. Just so many words that I thought I knew by being this word scholar, right? That all of these words, imposter syndrome, all these kind of things are like masterminds, right? These, I talked to a guy a few years ago, and they're talking about how do we become a society that we just choose 2 words out the dictionary, put them together, and reformulate an idea, formulate a purpose, which I guess is growth in itself. But when you look at it and how you pointed out with the mastermind before, we were talking about how you even pick these words to form these words to create things that really don't mean what you formed. Right. So when you look at those things, but doing the work process of that is the scary part for a lot of individuals. And I start thinking about the niche in essence of vulnerability, because we work along with those same kind of analogies in there within that, finding out who you truly are and dealing with the truth of it. I think a lot of people are very afraid of the truth, and I can generalize that, and I can also funnel that down. So a lot of people are really afraid of the truth, and in the essence of afraid of it, not necessarily knowing it, but dealing with it. And what does that mean? Because we've been so kind of like put in places to where truth does not really reign. It does not really have control. Narratives are derived. So we come into this concept mentally of saying, okay, what really is true? And if that's really true, maybe I don't want to know the truth. And if I don't want to know the truth, maybe I don't want to live in the truth. So we get this occupancy of people that saying, I'm okay where I'm at.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's so interesting. I think about this, to that really makes me think of, this colloquial expression that we have, that the truth hurts.
Yeah.
And I actually just can't disagree more. My sense of what hurts is the extent to which we can see that we have been believing something that is not true when the light of truth shines on it. Right? Truth doesn't hurt. Truth is, what is true is love. What's not true hurts. When we're saying, the truth hurts, what we're generally talking about, or I think what, is saying, well, I don't want to see the truth. What we're generally saying is, I don't want to see the extent to which I'm believing stuff that's not. I don't want to see the extent to which I'm living in illusion, because that's scary. I just want to say I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
It is,
We all have.
it is terrifying to realize the extent to which I've just been completely living in an illusion and interacting and engaging in ways where I totally was believing my own crap. And to really reckon with the extent of that it takes courage to look at that. But it's not the truth of it. You know what I mean? It's the extent to which I'm lying that I think is the scary thing.
Yeah, that that version of I always thought I always thought that as well. I mean, it's how does the truth hurt?
Mm.
How does it? Ask yourself that question. How does it hurt? And when you start formulating the answers to that, there's always something underlying that we notice with life. There's always something under the surface in each and every individual. I like how you put it to the point of those that are ready to do the work and then doing the work. And so many aspects of this is individual thing. I know we get power, competence. We boost ourselves when we do this community, when we do this as a group. But the acceptance and accountability, that is really my foundation of vulnerability. The accountability part of that, you have to take in owning it. What's your really take on the accountability and how we are not always accountable? Because I can just about point at anyone at any point in time, and they're actually pointing at anyone in any point of time to pass what I'm pointing at them about. So how important and essential is that accountability piece in the true leadership? And how hard have you find that to be with people willing to be accountable for their own crap, like accepting that?
Yeah, well, it's absolutely fundamental. There's no doing this work without that first piece. It just is not possible because, if you're, anytime that you're placing the blame outside of yourself, you're placing power outside of yourself. Right. And, a lot of times we're afraid of taking accountability. I work with often with organizations or groups. Accountability, by the way, is I would say we were talking about the heart of the matter. That's what I see as the leverage point in groups and with teams, right? It's the thing, like having accountability. And man, I got to work with language around that stuff too. It's just like vulnerability, right? People hear vulnerability and they're like, what? Like expose myself to wounding? Like you're crazy, right? When I say accountability, you know what people often hear is they hear, you want me to take the blame. You want to open me up to take the blame. And that's my sense of why there's such an apprehension to do this in our society. Because if you look on the news and just, it is really this, blame and victim and drama, all that stuff is endemic to our society. It is the most generally accepted way of talking about stuff. You turn on any news outlet, and anytime there's something bad, hard, right, happens, first thing that we ask is, who's to blame? We're always looking at where to put something out on somebody else, right? And the question that we're not asking is, okay, well, what's my contribution to this? I've got no control over what you do, and what you do. But what's my contribution to this? And again, I would say that in terms of, I don't do any, Carl, in terms of this kind of work with folks. I do not do any kind of talking folks into taking ownership or accountability. I don't do any, because that's like manipulation. Generally when people are ready for this work, they're like, I'm ready to do that.
You're ready to do it. Yeah.
And that's it. And if they're not, and I'm working with them individually, because that does happen, people are in this sort of victim, I'm just asking questions. I'm like, well, geez, what's your contribution to this? Or how's that going? How's this, this way of relating in the world going? And so I think that's, generally the way that I go about it. So yeah, it's absolutely fundamental. at least this kind of work that I'm doing with folks in the true leadership approach is absolutely not possible from the place of victim. And I just want to say, like, in that we're learning, constantly learning, myself too, over and over and over. It's a practice.
Yeah.
It's a practice. It's a practice. It's a practice to consistently take ownership, not for what happens to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not to, and I want to be really careful, because this is not to say that, I want to be like, it's finding, no matter what happens, because we all know that there are folks in this world that experience oppression,
Horrible things.
horrible things that other people don't. So this is not a message of, I just want to be really clear, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just no. But it is looking for, in each and every single one of us, there is an opportunity, no matter what happens, to find and connect with my own power, to find and connect with my own dignity, to find and connect with my own love for myself. That's really what this is about.
Yeah, Carla hit that right on the head. Taking the blame is distinctly different than knowing what you deserve, and it's actually what you pointing out. Taking ownership of your feelings, that's the vulnerable piece. Because a lot of times we put that on, and I've lost clients, potential clients. I lost people who was working with me. They got angry when I started those questions because, of course, on here and we talk. I'm not going to take you through the ringer on the show, or I'm not going to take you through the ringer through the Zoom. But once we get on the 1-on-1 and you want my help, I've had a couple of people like, no, that's not how I see you posting and stuff. And I was like, well, what was you on? What was you on? I'm not a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, but the premise of it is what work are you willing to do? What are you willing to accept? And how much of that are you willing to say, I had a hand in that?
Yes.
Right.
Because a lot of times we will never accept that I had a hand in that. And you're right. You have to be aware to say, okay, I'm not saying what has happened to me, but what have you done? And how are you going to change that behavior? Because I'm looking at the manifestations of symptoms, and those symptoms are hindering you from growing. So therein lies how are you going to change things to where the symptoms don't manifest and the growth begins.
Yeah. I mean, it's this fundamental, I just, thinking about something that happens in childhood, which we all, experience hard things in childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well, you might say, well, what is my contribution to, experience the, abuse at the hand of I mean, it's a horrible example, but just to make it sort of really obvious, what potential contribution can I find in me being a young child that was being abused, for example? And I would say, well, the extent to which you ended up believing that the reason that you received that is because you weren't enough. So it comes back to my story, right? So it's like, if I believe it, that's my contribution. It's not saying that I've done anything wrong. It's not saying that I've done anything wrong. It's just owning the fact that, wow, I really believe that. I believe that for a long time in my life. And to look at that, to the extent to which I believe something that was not true, that's my contribution. And when I own that, right, I can begin to drop that. And now all this stuff, it didn't change what happened in the past, but I don't have to believe that the reason that stuff happened was because I'm not enough. Well, and now I'm living a completely different life. If you would have told me when I was 25 years old that 15 years later that I would, be experiencing a truly enduring happiness with a, incredibly beautiful relationships and, feeling capacity and confidence and deepening presence and in a community, I would have told you would have taken a miracle. That's what I said in my recent post. It didn't take, it was a miracle because life is a miracle. And at the same time, I learned how to slow things way the heck down. and get really, really, really honest with myself and learn how to be honest with myself in a way that wasn't punishing myself further.
Yeah, and it's about giving yourself. We say this a lot. Giving yourself that grace to
Grace.
go through it,
Yeah.
and to give you time to go through it. Because especially when you are at an older state, if something happened to you younger or something happened to you at whatever stage, and now you've given it some years, and someone or yourself has you going back in, like you said, you're going back in and you're experiencing that again. Sometimes it might be a trigger
Mhm.
that causes you to do that. You have to now really understand why you're going through it. Why is it um, taking such a hold on you? And then doing that work to manifest something better, because it's also a mindset that you're trapped in this thought of you don't deserve better than what you're
Mhm.
going through at that time.
Yeah, and that's right, and that's the I just love that word grace so much. That's so powerful. I feel like there's such, power in that, and and it's recognizing. I work with something called like identifying what I call the inner motive, which is all the like you could look at there's nothing that we do internally, like you could look at the shame, the self-judgment, the self-criticism, the self-doubt, like all the ways that we beat ourselves up. And through inner inquiry, when you can find that actually every single one of those things is wanting to help us in some way.
Hmm.
It has a positive intent, and it saved us at some point in our life. And so if I can, it's just and this is comes back in terms of awareness. If I'm looking at something from a place of judgment, like I say, if there's something that I don't want to see because it's hard, eventually I won't see it. It's called going to sleep, right? So how can I learn to look at things in a way that doesn't have me wanting to look away? Well, understanding that there's nothing that I'm doing, the stuff that I dislike the most about myself isn't because I'm a bad person, not because I've done anything wrong. It's just because I didn't learn a different way.
Right.
That's all. It's a basis for self-compassion. And now we're just looking at, okay, the way that I'm attempting to do that is really not helping my life right now. So let me notice when I'm doing that stuff and take that a little deeper in, and then see if we can, get to that place of accountability, and then the ability to respond is doing something different, getting to that moment in presence uh, where you actually have some more freedom and choice to choose something different.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
I love all the comments that have been
Yeah,
coming in through this show.
enjoying it.
It's
Yeah.
they're all powerful, and I also wanted to point this one out, that we readily, this by Clinton, that we readily take
Hmm.
blame that doesn't belong to us, yet we share our praise with people who
Absolutely.
didn't really help you. And that is
Yes.
so true. Like we give so much credit to others who really didn't do a lot of the work. You did the work. And I think we have to stop doing that. And um I don't want it to sound like you don't want to give gratitude. There's always going to be those who help you start or help keep you accountable for yourself, but it's really you at the end of the day who has to sit down and do that work, because no matter how many people say that they're going to coach you, they're going to be your accountability buddy, whatever that is, no matter how much praying you do, it
Mhm.
always goes back to, if you don't actually do the work to reap those seeds that have been planted, then what's the point? Everything else, everything that you've been trying to harvest is going to go to waste anyway. So you have to really know that at the end of the day, it's really the person, it's the individual that allows things to happen as well.
Yeah,
So great conversations,
yeah,
everybody. Thank
absolutely.
y'all.
Right.
I really,
And yes, Joy, you are not broken. We have to remember that too.
Yes,
We are
Joy.
not broken.
Yeah, definitely. That's an
Yeah.
awesome statement. You're not broken. I mean, it's one of we do have to remember that, because it's one of the most important things, and it actually is one of the most fundamentally things that guides us It guides our choices, our decisions, our relationships. When we take on that mindset of how we feel about us, it ultimately manifests. And I can't get enough of that word because that's really what it does. Manifestation takes time over a period to bloom. And that's what we do with those internal things. They manifest themselves in our lives in so many other ways that we disinfect people or infect people. Infect people, right? If that's a good terminology to use. But man, Ty, man, it joy. I'm speechless, man. I'm normally not speechless, but I'm speechless.
Yes. So while he's speechless, Ty, let the folks know how they can connect with you
Wonderful.
and really work with you and
Oh,
have that one-on-ones with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm available at my website, onemountainleadership.com. So you can check me out there. Please do also check me out on LinkedIn. I'm just beginning to that's my next vulnerable show. I just want to say I've been talking about that, and it's almost just perfect. I just gotta say I gotta just shine some love on you too right now. I've just loved this so much, and it just has been such an amazing welcoming into the LinkedIn community. I'm really, really grateful to you both for that. So thank you. So please do find me on LinkedIn as well. And you can just email me at ty@onemountainleadership.com. So
Awesome.
that's awesome.
So close us out, dear Reverend.
Go check.
Dear Reverend Mr. Vulnerability.
Go check this guy out. Go check Ty out. Wonderful. You guys haven't even scratched the surface. We've had conversations. We're going to continue to have more conversations. I look to some collaborations as well. We've been talking about that as well because I don't deal with people who I can't see collaborations with. This is no knock on anybody. Everybody got their own niche. I read you. Don't think that you're on that screen and I ain't reading you. But I don't connect with everybody, and my connection is deep. So once you have that, you've got to work to get it. I don't allow everybody in, and it's purposely. But Ty is a phenomenal goal, and work with him. You will not regret, and definitely not only for working with him, you won't regret the journey because it's not even really about him. Sometimes we need guidance to get where we need to be, and we can't do it alone. And you have to find that person or find that system or find that program that gets you there to a place where you can get going on your own. Such as I always use the analogy of the mom pushing the chick out. The mom know the time is there. And you don't always know, but who you working with, they kind of know who the time is there. And when you get it internal in yourself, you'll fly. Chicks don't always hit the ground. Now you do have something to hit the ground, but they don't always hit the ground. So you be one of the ones don't hit the ground. Go work with Ty Hammond. Go find out about some true leadership. Uncover some things about yourself that you would be excited to know. That's who you are. You really would. Thank you guys for showing up. Everybody in the chat. We had Nigeria in here. We had the UK in here. We had all the states in here. We love you guys so much. We thank you for chiming in, putting it in the comments. Go check out the replay for those who are going to check it out. Drop it in. We will get back into you until Thursday, guys. Peace.
Peace out, y'all. And make sure you guys
yeah.
ready to book. We have August open.
Yes.
August is now open. We had to, keep things down because everybody's been asking. So August is open. So
we had to close it up. People was angry. People was mad. People was mad. They couldn't. Why that date ain't open? I'm like, I don't know. We got a scheduling calendar that goes out. You put yourself in there. We do our ticket openings. It's a blessing, though. We've been in June, like in January. So we've been kind of stretched out. It's just been a blessing of what we've been doing. But we can't do it without you guys. I have to always say that. We can't do it without you participating. We can't do it without the wonderful guests like Ty and those that have come on before him, those that have booked after him. We need your value in what you add to the community. And we hope that we're making a difference. That's what it's about.
Yeah. So everyone, thank you guys again. And we'll see y'all Thursday.
Thursday, guys. Later.
Talk with Carl and Charlene. Real talk for the real world. Let's get it. Real talk with Carl and Charlene. Real talk for the real world. Let's get it.